Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. I'm Jay Zawaski with Greg Boysen and Mario Tirabassi. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. Make sure you smash that like button on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Podcast listeners, follow or subscribe on your preferred podcast app, or really all the podcast apps. Just download all of them and then subscribe or follow us on all of them. And then, listen wherever you want. Mix it up. Keep things fresh. It's very, very helpful. And throw us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That would be greatly appreciated as well. All right, Mario did it. Volume 1 of Mario's 2023-24 Prospect Pyramid is out. You can read it right now at allchgo.com, but it's going to be the show today as well. Mario did a ton of hard work on this, put a ton of time and energy into it. So,
ton of work. I'll call it a ton of work.
Well, have you through it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Prospect Pyramid. We've been talking about it for a little bit now, coming up in the off season, especially after development camp and the draft and everything. Over the years, give you a little backstory. Over the years, prospect rankings, I know a lot of people and outlets do it numerically, 1 through 20, 25, and all that stuff. But I have found that we get into these arguments over who should be number 5 versus who should be number 8 versus who's number 19 and who's number 20 and all this stuff. And look, like a lot of these guys, the difference between them is razor thin. So, I feel like a better system is putting them into these tiers, into these categories in which, this prospect looks to fit this bill, rather than this prospect is number 5 and he's better than prospect at number 7 because of XYZ. Like a lot of these guys, they're on the same kind of playing field. So over the years, I've kind of gone through this pyramid system. So this will be the second ever pyramid in the CHGO era for the Blackhawks prospects. So very happy that this is done. I enjoy doing this and going through all the guys, and I like looking back and seeing who's moved up in my estimations, who's moved down, who fits, who are some of the new guys that fit in where. So it's going to be fun to go through. So eligibility for this prospect pyramid, based on how I determine a prospect, is 2 disqualifiers for a player. One, if they have played more than 90 NHL games in their career, and the other one is if they are older than 23 years old when the season starts. So that'll be older than 23 on October 10th, 2023 for the start of this season. So looking at the Blackhawks prospect system, there are 43 prospects that fit that bill to be under 90 NHL games played, younger than 23 at the start of the season, 27 forwards, 13 defensemen, and 3 goaltenders.
And you have it tiered off into 5 levels. Level 1 is a special prospect / franchise player. You have examples here: Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby. Level 2 is quality prospect / longtime NHL player. Examples there: Patrick Sharp, Nicholas Hjalmarsson, Tony Amonte, Brian Campbell. Level 3, good prospect, complimentary player. Examples are Andrew Shaw, Brian Bickle, Dave Bolin, Johnny Oduya. Level 4, average prospect / depth player. I think we all know what those are. And level 5, the one I'd be in, everyone else. So I think it makes sense for us to start at the top here. And I don't think there's many questions as to who's going to be in your top tier here, Mario.
Yeah, and this top tier has gotten me in trouble over the years because in past iterations of the prospect pyramid, guys like Adam Boquist and Kirby Dach have been here before, and I think after seeing how those players developed and what their ceilings are looking like they're going to be, I had to do some self-reflection and be like, okay, take the Blackhawks colored glasses off. What do these top tier prospects that the Blackhawks have actually look like? So, this is a tier where like you mentioned the examples that I put together there, like these are franchise cornerstone players. These are players that you take in a draft and you say they are the guy. Kane, Tays, Austin Matthews, McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, all those kinds of players. And finally, for the first time in my prospect pyramid history, there's actually a legitimate guy for this tier, and it is Connor McDavid, or Connor Bedard rather, and only Connor Bedard. And I probably, unless the Blackhawks somehow win the lottery next year or the year after, and there's Macklin Celebrini is getting to that level of Bedard or McDavid or those guys as prospects, which I don't know if we expect that to happen, but Bedard will be that guy, and it'll only be him for a while, I assume. So look, like, you can go to our YouTube page, go through the Connor Bedard playlist. That's all the information you'll need to know about Connor Bedard. Like, he is that guy. I think he is that special player that is going to come in and be the face of the franchise. He's going to be the main attraction until he's not. And I think, with yesterday's show, we were talking about Dom Luszczyszyn's, the goal differential and how teams have added or subtracted from their seasons during the off season from last year to this year so far, and how Bedard wasn't listed for the Blackhawks, but if he was, he would have taken them from 23rd on the ranking to tied for 5th. I think that analytical backing is really all you need to know about what Bedard's capabilities could be for the Blackhawks right away, and then what the special player he might turn out to be as his career progresses and as he develops.
This is the one episode where we can kind of brush past Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all know Connor Bedard.
It's ho-hum. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. All right, so who do you got in your second tier here, Mario?
So second tier is it's interesting. This one was when I put it together last year, there were 4 names. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sorry, 5 names. None of them went up, none of them went down, and one of them was added this year from the draft. So in this second tier, the tier number 2, quality prospects / longtime NHL player, I have Lucas Reichel, Frank Nazar, Kevin Korchinski, Alex Vlasic, Drew Comezzo, and Oliver Moore. These are all guys that I think both the Blackhawks and people observing the organization as far as their prospect system goes, these are all guys that I think all have that long-term hope and expectation that they're going to be NHL players. They're going to be top-end NHL contributors. And these are going to be, those not necessarily the guys that shoulder the load for the franchise, but they're going to be the ones that complement a guy like Connor Bedard or whoever else the Blackhawks potentially bring in as a free agent or a trade piece that fit that mold, that top tier, top line player, that star player. These are going to be the guys that help those players and are able to shoulder some of the weight and still be those contributing factors. And maybe a few of these guys become NHL All-Stars. Hopefully they all lift a cup with Chicago at some point.
With Korchinski in your second tier, was there any thought to you as you were developing this to maybe move him in that top tier or no?
No, I think Korchinski is one of those guys that, if I was numerically doing this, he'd be, out of this tier, probably number 1 in this group. But I think, his projection, the expectations that he has of being, a top pair defenseman, a guy who can be a special play or a special teams player, power play specialist guy, a guy like that. For me, if I were to put him in the top tier along with Connor Bedard, I would have to be sold that not only is his offensive game going to pan out at the NHL level and develop into something effective, but his defensive game will be there. And while he's not, a turnstile defensively, I think there's still some questions on, will he be more of an offensive guy and have to be paired with a guy who's a little bit more defensively responsible to get the most out of him. If he was, the comparison, I think, what was it? Scott Wheeler said he could be Roman Josi. Like, I think Roman Josi is one of the best defensemen in the NHL, but I don't think anyone would say he's one of the best two. So I think that's where I thought about Korchinski in that tier.
Like that.
Yeah, the biggest question I had for this tier was Alex Vlasic, and I think it's because, we saw the small sample size from him when he first made his NHL debut and how he progressed, and by the end of that 2022 season, it was like, oh, he's playing with Seth Jones, he's playing effectively, and I think we all kind of thought, oh, he'd be a full-time NHLer last year, and he went down to the Ice Hogs and played the majority of the season there in Rockford. Still took some positive steps forward. Still took some, his development is still going in the right direction. But I think this year there's still a little bit of a question mark if he's going to be a full-time NHLer. And I think that was why I was a little bit on the fence of, would he be tier 2, tier 3? But I still think the physical tools are there. And I think the skill set is there for him to be a top 4 defenseman for this team eventually. And he's one of these prospects that is kind of getting the red carpet laid out of like, here's your opportunity, go be a full-time NHLer. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does with that opportunity this training camp and into the season.
Yeah, I that was kind of, I was sort of thinking about that too. Like, is Vlasic in that tier? But I feel like every time we've seen him, he's gotten better and better. And, at the end of last year, I would say even at the end of the year before his rookie year, going from, Derek King saying he just flat out isn't ready to suddenly being a top pair guy in the course of like 15 games.
Yeah.
I just think he's been really impressive, and his ability to adapt and get better, kind of quickly has been impressive. So I think he starts the season here. I don't think there's much question about that. And I'm really excited to see what he can do over 82 games and if he's up here for good, because I think he's pretty much done everything you can ask him to do. He's not going to be a guy who's going to score a ton of goals or do those sort of things. But the only thing left for him to prove is, can he play at the NHL level on a regular basis?
Yeah.
So let's see. Now is the time to find out, right?
Yeah, and his size, his skating, and his length, I think, really benefit what the Blackhawks are looking for in defensemen. We've seen a change organizationally to, kind of valuing those bigger mobile defensemen rather than just mobile. And if you're 5'11", it's fine. So I think that's why I think Vlasic has a little bit of a leg up amongst some of the other defensive prospects coming up because of his size and how defensively he can, gap up players because he's 6'6" and has the length that, can you try and go around him? He's a big guy to try and go around. And if you're going to try and go through him, you're going to have to go through an arm or a stick or, a leg, or he's going to get a body on you. So I think it's the style of player that he is, I think, lends to the fact that he has the ability to be a top minutes eating defenseman in the league in the future.
Yeah, I think this will be a big year for Vlasic. And I also would like to say, like, if we don't see that all-star potential coming out of him this season and he struggles, let's not all just rush to say, oh, he's a bust. He's still very, very young. And young defensemen struggle. Young defensemen have ups and downs in their first 2, 3, 4 full seasons. There were times when Duncan Keith looked absolutely clueless out there his first couple seasons. You can say the same for Brent Seabrook. They struggled a lot. So while I think Vlasic is a full-time NHLer this year, like, let's get ready to expect some bumps along the way. If not, awesome. But let's be realistic.
Yeah.
And the other name in that tier that I'm interested to see where he's at a year from now when we're doing this prospect pool again is Drew Comezzo. I know there's a lot of high hopes for him, rightfully so. He's the number one goalie prospect in this on this organization. Let's see what a full AHL season does for him. Do we still feel that way a year from now that he's our guy? We were asked yesterday or Monday earlier this week, when the Blackhawks are a Stanley Cup contender again, who do we envision being the goalie? We all said Comezzo, and I think that was more of like, it better be, or something's gone wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think we were like very like, it's gonna be him, no doubt. It's like, well, it should be him. I mean, he's the guy that's, being looked for that. So I look forward to seeing him play in Rockford all season, and then see where we're at next year if we're still high on the Drew Comezzo train. I think we will be. I think he's going to be just fine. He's shown in his college career that he can have spurts where he struggles, but then rebounds nicely and finishes strong. So we'll see how that goes out this year.
Yeah. I think for Comezzo, the way I look at it is like probably since Corey Crawford was around and going through the minors, he's the best goaltending prospect as far as production and pedigree in juniors, college, and all that leading up to his professional debut. I think since Crawford was around, I think he's the best that the Blackhawks have had. So I think that's where a lot of the hope comes from. Is like, okay, upper end second round pick, guys, was Team USA's goalie at the World Juniors, World Championships, was selected to the Olympic team. Like, there's already, before he's even stepped on the ice for a professional game, he's had those opportunities, and he's played in some big games, big tournaments for Boston, and has been the starter for basically the entire time he was there. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of the hopes come from. And yeah, I would like for him to pan out. I think it would be great for the Blackhawks to be in a position where they rested on Corey Crawford for a long time, and never really took a swing on a high upside goalie in the draft, because I think previous management figured, well, we have Corey Crawford, it's totally fine. It would be nice for a guy like Comezzo, who, to the credit of the former GM, was one of his selections. It would be nice for a drafted goalie to eventually pan out and be the starter, and not only just the starter, but be a starter of quality.
Yep, that's why I kind of like the move of drafting another high level potential goalie in the second round this year.
Yeah.
It's always good to have insurance. It's always good to have more than one really good goalie in your system. We saw it this year in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You got to have more than one goalie most of the time, unless you got one of those elite world-class goalies, but those guys are hard to find. But, hey, maybe we're going to have a situation here that we had in the early 90s when we had to decide between Ed Belfour and Dominic Hasek. Man, that was an embarrassment of riches right there. Which Hall of Fame goalie do we trade? Which one do we just keep and win with for the next 10 years?
Yeah.
I still think they take too much heat for that. Like, at the time, Belfour was better.
Oh, by far. Hasek, even even when Hasek was traded, it still took him like 3 or 4 years in Buffalo to get to that elite Hall of Fame level.
Yeah. So a couple things at the draft like kind of raised my eyebrows, and we haven't talked about this specifically, but the fact that they took Adam Guyan in the second round so high, I wonder what that means about their feelings about Comezzo. Are they not as confident? Is it just, hey, he was the best guy available, so he took him? And the other thing is, you have Oliver Moore rightfully in your second pyramid in my mind, but the fact that he slipped to 19, have you guys thought about that at all? Like, God, I wonder why. Like, I wonder why 18 other teams passed on Oliver Moore when everything we read about him going into the draft was potentially top 10. Probably won't get past 13, and he goes all the way to 19. I wonder if there's something that we're missing about Oliver Moore. I hope not. Hopefully, it's just good luck and just the luck of the draw for the Hawks. But ever since he slipped, I'm kind of like, I wonder why he slipped.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you look at Scott Wheeler's 50 top prospects heading into the year, he's got Oliver Moore at 17 of all NHL prospects, not just guys drafted this year. So I don't know. I think it's more of a case of some GMs trying to be the smartest guy in the room. We know what that's like here, trying to, look what the Coyotes did. They went out and probably reached at both of their picks, 6 and 12. Like they could have had Oliver Moore at one of those picks and been just, happy. So I think a lot of guys, and then when Arizona picked the two, it was both defensemen, right?
They picked Simashev and then Boot.
Right. Yeah. So a defenseman at 4, but those are both guys that were going to be there much later. And I think that made other teams, go after guys that not had maybe they would have targeted more, go after guys that they didn't expect to be there. So they got them there. And, thank you, Arizona Coyotes. At least your suits matched.
Yeah. Right.
Cute.
Very cute.
I think you're right, Greg, about Moore and how other teams. You have to factor in other teams' draft boards and what they're prioritizing and what they're looking for. Obviously, with the example of Arizona, they prioritized size in their draft, and we saw Matvei Michkov fall to 7, that we saw. Surefire number 2, Adam Fantilli go to 3. So I think you look at what different scouting departments think about different players. It's obvious that the Blackhawks loved Oliver Moore, and maybe some other teams were just in love with other players a little bit more than they were with him. He was the fourth forward option with the National Team Development Program behind Will Smith, Gabe Perreault, and Ryan Leonard, all who were drafted ahead of him. So, when you kind of go down the pecking order, like I can see why he fell. It's still surprising that he was there at 19. And we talked about it when, earlier this week. And when we were at the draft, we were like, all just looking at each other, like there's so much quality still available at 19. And he was part of that group where we were like, man, like that's impressive. And the physical tools are there. Obviously the speed, the playmaking, his hands, his shot, like it's all there. I think it's just maybe one of the questions in why he fell was just, is he just a freak athlete and that's what's going to get him, that's as far as he's going to go? Or is he going to also be able to not only, play the game at a high speed, but also think the game at a high speed? I think that's one of the factors that maybe he fell a little bit. Other teams are maybe looking for guys that, maybe think the game a little bit differently or at a quicker pace. But I think eventually, he's going to Minnesota. He'll probably play there 2 years. I think eventually once he does hit the professional ice, I think we're going to be looking at a prospect that is like, hopefully steps right in and can play with Reichel and Bedard and all these guys take the steps that we're hoping.
Well, look, I think when you've got speed, you're at an advantage right away. And we've had guys on the Hawks who have probably had NHL careers based on their speed alone, and Victor Stahlberg, and I think Sam Lafferty is another guy who maybe not quite as, they're different kind of players, but I think if Lafferty didn't have the speed he has, he's probably one of those perennial AHL guys. But that's a huge difference maker, and more than both those guys seems to have more offensive game and more offensive upside. So I don't think he's going to be bad. When I see Kyle Davidson that enthusiastic about a player, you got to be like, damn, there must be really be onto something here. But when you see a guy fall too, you got to kind of like get your attention a little bit.
Yeah.
Before we move on,
not just. I'm sorry. Just one more thought on Moore. No pun intended. You mentioned his speed and how well that's going to serve him, but not only his speed individually, but adding him to a roster full of already fast guys. That's going to make him suit him even and make him more dangerous potentially. If he's just one fast guy with a bunch of average skaters, it doesn't make him as dangerous. But if you can put him potentially on a line or in a top 6 with Reichel and Bedard and Frank Nazar, who's got great speed, and Kevin Korchinski on the back end and guys like that, all of a sudden, you talk about like the 2010, 2013 Blackhawks they had that speed, they had that puck possession. They just didn't let you have the puck most nights. And we could be getting back to that sort of hockey. I know that appears to be the game plan.
Yeah. Well, that's the Bedard ripple effect we talked about too, because having him takes a lot of the offensive pressure off other guys. Like, and just from a spotlight perspective, right? Like, of course, the Hawks still want and need Lucas Reichel and Oliver Moore to become dependable goal scorers, but maybe now Reichel doesn't have to be, a 70-point guy anymore for the rebuild to work. Now, if you're looking at a 50, 60-point guy, okay, it's a little easier to swallow. And conversely, if him and Bedard play together, then you're probably going to see higher numbers than he would get on your average line, right? So that's aside from Bedard being this excellent like generational prospect, you're also getting a guy who's taking a lot of the pressure off a bunch of the other guys. And if you want to take the pressure off yourself, you're feeling a little bit stressed, a little bit anxious, maybe having trouble sleeping, kick back with some of the great products from our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer. It's Illinois' favorite dispensary, from Chicago to the suburbs, Wrigleyville to River North, Champaign to South Beloit, Forest Park to Park Forest. I added that one because I never know which is which. And I live right by one of them. I think I live by Forest Park. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Park Forest is north. Forest Park is more south.
Yeah, Forest Park is cool. Google it. There's a really cool history to Forest Park. Anyway, as it is a Sunnyside Summer Friday, we want to talk about who made us feel good this week in Chicago sports. And I'm going to go ahead and go away from the Blackhawks for once. Nico Horner. I was at the Cubs game the other night, and he hit a grand slam and just kind of put a cherry on top of a wonderful night at Wrigley Field, as we have had so many over these summers over the years. But Sunnyside has a tremendous house of brands to choose from. Mindy's, the best tasting gummy and chocolate edibles created by James Beard award-winning chef Mindy Siegel and Cresco Labs. My favorite brand, the Good News. They've got the gummies, the rechargeable vape pens, and the carts. Perfect for great moments with the crew. I love the Counting Sheep, either the gummies or the rechargeable vape pen. The Frye is great if you're a little bit socially anxious, like this guy here talking. Really takes the edge off when you're heading out for the night. Great stuff from Good News and Mindy's. They got Cresco, High Supply, Floracal, Wonder, Remedy, all these great brands, all available at Sunnyside. And now through August, head to sunnyside.shop and use code CHGO25 at checkout for 25% off your total order. That's one use per customer, and it's not stackable with other promotions, but it's not only for new customers. Anyone can use our code. Pick up everything you need to elevate your summer. Must be 21 plus or an Illinois MedCard holder. Again, that is sunnyside.shop and code CHGO25 for 25% off your total order.
Wasn't Mindy's the restaurant from Seinfeld that Banyan wanted to go for? Wasn't that Mindy's? Mendy's. Sorry.
Mendy's. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Soup is not a meal.
Yeah.
That's correct. Soup is not a meal.
Yeah.
It is not.
Even the heartiest of soups, you still need something with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like a hearty broccoli cheddar, you need to have something with it.
Yeah.
Garbage can.
Only mentioned that to piss off Greg.
I know. It works. Congratulations. I hate that stuff. Ugh.
I can't wait for more of it at the UC this year.
Delightful.
Yeah.
You always do when those elevator doors open that it's broccoli cheddar night.
It's just got that funk.
You smell it.
Yeah. Well, hey, we got some good news on our event front, and I gotta shout out White fans who, in an upset, The White Sox Crosstown Series takeover sold out before the Cubs won.
Hey,
So there you go. The July 26th Cubs at White Sox game at Guaranteed Rate Field, our CHGO Crosstown takeover is sold out. However, whether you're a Sox fan or a Cubs fan, tickets still remain for the August 16th takeover, White Sox at Cubs at Wrigley Field, 7:05 p.m. and Section 425R. There's going to be a pregame meetup at 5:30 at a bar in the area. We don't want to confuse people and have
do
them.
they have any of those down there? I wasn't aware.
That's slim pickings.
I want to vote for the G-Man. That's my favorite. And Nisi. Either of those are fine, but I don't think it's going to be either of those. Each ticket purchase comes with the new CHGO baseball shirt, south side or north side, based on preference. Shirt and size are chosen at checkout and order confirmation. We saw which fan base is more diehard. The Sox sold out first, but Cubs fans, go get your tickets right now. AllCHGO.com. Navigate over to that events tab, click down to the Crosstown Series takeovers, and you can go from there. Diehards, of course, you will save on the event. You can go to the CHGO Diehard tab. If you're a diehard, go to Diehard events, and you'll get it right there too, and get your discount. So
Hey,
do it. We'll see you there.
That's a testament to what we're doing at CHGO, that we could even make a shitty game between the Cubs and White Sox
Sell out.
appealing to our diehards. So we should pat ourselves on the back for that.
Give us the Barry Horowitz.
We're making mid-level baseball appealing to our fans. That's an accomplishment.
Kings of mid.
Yes. Mike chiming in with Wrigley Field is garbage. Thank you, White Sox fan.
Must be. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I'm
not. I just wanted to give him the attention he wanted. All right. We got 3 tiers left. Tier 3, Mario calls the, as I scroll down, sorry, I'm scrolling, the good prospect / complimentary player tier.
Yeah, so this one is the most populated tier of the pyramid. So if you were to actually make a pyramid shape, it would kind of look like more like an ace than a pyramid. But hey, it still counts. Yeah, in this tier we got Landon Slager, Colton Dock, Jalen Lipin, Paul Ludwinski, Ryan Green, Dominic James, Isaac Phillips, Wyatt Kaiser, Ethan Del Mastro, Nolan Allen, Sam Renzel, Adam Guyan, Ilya Safanov, Gavin Hayes, Martin Miziak, and Samuel Savoie.
He should be in the tier above Bedard.
He's in his own tier.
Love that guy.
I will say though, Savoie moved from last year to this year, moved up from 4 to 3, so he progressed up the chart. Yeah, I think this is where a lot of really good prospect systems, if you look across the board, this is where those top end prospect systems in the league, this is where most of them are the fattest, because you have a lot of these guys that they're in that tier where it's like, are they on the cusp of being one of these players that's going to be looked at as a building block, but at the very least they have a path to the NHL. I think when you're looking at prospect systems, the more players that you have that you can see a path to the NHL without having to be like, oh, well, if this goes right and this goes right, and maybe if this player does XYZ, the less you have to say that about a prospect, the more that their path to the NHL becomes clear. And I think with the Blackhawks and this group, each of these players, you can see a path to the NHL already in their young careers. Like I said, Savoie moved up this year, up into this tier. A guy that I was like just on the cusp of putting into the second tier, but decided to keep him down, was Colton Dock, because like we've mentioned before, he's a really good prospect when he's healthy. He's been really productive when he's healthy. But what is he at the professional level? We're going to get the opportunity to see that this year as he makes the jump to the pro leagues. He's going to play with the Rockford Ice Hogs this year. I really want to see what can he become as a professional player, because as a prospect, he was, a captain in Kelowna. He was a top 6 player with Seattle. He was a good goal scorer. He played with Team Canada as more of a defensive forechecking role. So he has some versatility to his game, but what can he do at the professional level that'll stand out and get him to that NHL level and get him to be more than just a depth guy at the NHL level. So he's one of the guys in this group that I'm really interested to see what he can become. The rest of a lot of these guys, I feel like, you see their path. Landon Slager, high energy guy, relentless forechecker. He's going to be a fourth-year college player at Notre Dame. I still think he's in the organization's plans. I'd be surprised if he's not signed after this season. Jalen Lipens is kind of in that same mold, hardworking, relentless guy offensively. Has a scoring touch at the prospects level. So let's see what he can do as he becomes a pro this year. Paul Ludwinski, speed guy, energy guy. You're going to get a lot of that in this tier. Is the heart, the effort, the heart, the the hard working, the speed. That's where a lot of these guys shine. Ryan Green is another one that was kind of on that cusp for me. I'm really excited to see what he does at Boston this year. I think he's one of those guys that I could see moving up if he has a really good season this year. His second year at Boston, I could potentially see him being one of those guys that I put into the second tier next year. Isaac Phillips, is he an NHL player? Like we talk about Alex Vlasic kind of having the red carpet rolled out to like, here, become an NHL player. Isaac Phillips is like kind of on that same red carpet of like, this is your opportunity. Like he's done really well at the AHL level. He's developed on a faster path than I think expected because of COVID and the OHL shutdown. He was able to play in the AHL before players usually are able to. And I think he's benefited from that. So what does he do this next season? Wyatt Kaiser is a guy that he was a lot like Alex Vlasic was last year, where, he came in, got a taste of the NHL out of college, really played well. Does he stick in the NHL? Does he make the team out of camp? Does he go to Rockford and play primarily there? We'll end up seeing what he does, but he's another one of those guys where, he does a lot of things good. Does he do anything great? Rinzel, I want to see a little bit more out of him. I think the upside is there. There's a reason he was a first round pick. But he's a guy that I want to see what he does at Minnesota, because he was pretty good in the USHL with Waterloo. Didn't really jump off the page defensively, but I think he's going to go to a Minnesota program where he's going to get an opportunity to play in some big games, play for a big time program, play on a very talented team. So I like to see what he can do in those steps. Del Mastro and Allen, I think one of those two guys becomes a version of Brent Seabrook as a professional. And they're both going to play with Rockford this year. I would be shocked if either of them doesn't make their NHL debut at some point this year. I really think both of them have the physicality, the size, the skating, the offensive input to their games where, they could be one of these guys that you pair with Korchinski down the line. I think there's an opportunity for them there to make those strides. Savoie, I mean, with the comparisons to Andrew Shaw have been bountiful. I'm really excited to see what he does in the queue this year with Gatineau again. He'll get a top 6 opportunity. And when we talked with him at development camp, one of the things that he said was, one of the biggest parts of his game is getting under the skin of an opponent, being physical, being pesty, while also still being able to contribute offensively. And he still wants to do that, still wants to have that be a part of his game, but he doesn't want to lose the production, the point production that he can bring to the table. And he's going to get an opportunity to play in a top 6 role where, laying 10 hits, but having 0 shots on goal might not fly, but where you can do that as a third liner. So I'm interested to see what his production is like this next season coming up here. Gavin Hayes was a 40 goal scorer in the OHL. Let's see what he does again next year. Myziak, I believe, is going to go play in the OHL. He was drafted first overall by the Erie Otters in the European import draft. If not, he'll stick in the USHL for another season. Adam Guyan, I said on yesterday's show he's going to Michigan State. I had my wires crossed. That's Trey Augustine. Guyan's actually going to Minnesota Duluth, another top program, but that'll be his first year in college. So I'm excited to see what he can do. If he can grab a starting role at Duluth, that'd be amazing. I believe he's going to be there with Dominic James, who is also at Duluth. He's another fast forward that the Blackhawks have in their system. And then to round it out, the Russian Ilya Safonov, I think he's one of the more underrated prospects in the entire system, just because he's in Russia. It's a little bit harder to get eyes on him, here in North America, to get a reading on him. But from all accounts, and Greg, you were able to track him this past season in the rebuild report, looking at the European prospects. I mean, he was a captain in the KHL as a 21-year-old. He's a big guy, big center. Something that the Blackhawks don't have is a guy that can play a two-way game and have a big solid frame. And it looks like he's that kind of player. So I'm really interested to see if and when he comes to North America, and what he can do when he gets here.
Yeah, you could argue that, this is the most important tier for sustained success.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Because not everybody, there are some teams, franchises that have never had a guy in that top tier. They're still waiting for that guy. And when you do get a guy in that tier, he doesn't stay there for very long, because usually they're fast track to stardom. So that second tier of all-star caliber players, you don't get a lot of those guys either. But when you do, guys in those top two tiers become very expensive if you want to keep them around. So you need to be able to constantly have guys out of this middle tier to in and out, just shuffling through. These are the types of guys that you need in order to win 4-7 game playoff series. You need to have that depth. You need to be able to, and then these are the guys that unfortunately a lot of times will have to get sacrificed in hard salary cap summers. But if you've got a constant flow of these guys coming up through your organization, it makes those decisions a lot easier. So this is the most important tier as far as building a long-term contender. And the fact that there are so many names in it is very encouraging at this point. Now, not all of these guys are going to hit their potential. Not all of these guys are going to be NHL players. Not all of these guys are going to be, if they are NHL players, it won't be with the Blackhawks necessarily. But the more chances you have, the better, the more chances you have to hit on some of these guys. I know we had a couple comments about, Sam Renzel being a first round pick and he's only in this tier right now, but we got to remember he's 19. And we knew when this draft pick was made that it was a long-term project, a 3 to 5 year development arc for this kid. And the reason he was taken there was because he already had gotten Korchinski and Nazar in that first round. So you that was a pick that you definitely could use for a guy that takes more time. So I wouldn't be like crapping on the Sam Renzel pick right now. But
you probably don't make it if you don't have the other two picks. That's the thing.
Yeah, if Sam Renzel was the only pick of the first round, then okay. But so yeah, he's still going to take some time to get where he needs to go. And I wouldn't be, let's see where he does. He's, as you mentioned, Mark, he's going to Minnesota. There's one of the best programs out there for development. So let's see where he is next year. I'd be willing to bet that next year he's pushing into that second tier.
You mentioned Phillips at the top two, and I think maybe we said this before. Just want to reiterate, as you look at the pipeline that's coming up, Del Mastro, Allen, Korchinski, Kaiser. This really feels like Isaac Phillips' chance to kind of prove it and to say, I belong here too, because after this year, I mean, if he doesn't prove it this year, there's a pretty good chance he gets forced out by some of these guys that are here. So he needs to, and look, the stuff he's done at the NHL level, there's nothing I've seen that makes me concerned for him at all, that thinks he can't do it. But he wasn't able to stick full time last year. There were up and down moments from him for sure. I really want to see him get in the lineup consistently and maybe play with the same partner for a while and just see what they can do together and what an extended look will do for him, because it is difficult, especially for defensemen, to be in and out, up and down all the time. You kind of got to get a rhythm going. And I want to see Isaac Phillips given that opportunity to get that rhythm going.
Yeah. He's one of those guys where preseason is going to be preseason games and preseason minutes is going to be a big factor for him. And there's, he's going to be battling with Vlasic and with Kaiser and Del Mastro and Allen and Korchinski for that NHL ice time, not only this training camp and preseason, but probably into next year too. So yeah, this is a big opportunity for him to take a hold of it and say like, yeah, I'm ready for the NHL, and force the Blackhawks hand to say we can't take you out of the lineup.
All right, we've got 2 more tiers to go. The level 4 is your average prospect / depth player.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more of for me. It's players that have you can squint hard and you can see a pretty good player there. There's just still some more that we need to learn about these players. So this one not as populated as tier 3, but tier 4 is Aiden Thompson, Victor Schornberg, Antti Sorella, Tage Harding, Ryder Rolston, Michael Tepley, Marcel, and Nick Lardis. These are a lot of guys that I think the potential is there. It's just what are they going to turn into? I think Aiden Thompson is a guy at Denver. He's at a great program. He's definitely progressing in the right direction. He had a really good season last year. I'd like to see it duplicated and maybe built upon again at Denver. That'd be great. I mean, that's one of those, again, like we talk about Minnesota being a great program to go to. DU is one of the best in college to go to as well. Sorella and Schornberg, for me, I could easily see moving them up. It's just that what is their game from Europe to North America going to translate to? Sorella was just signed to this past spring, so he'll be coming over to the Ice Hogs and could potentially make the Blackhawks out of camp. But he's played already 5 seasons at the professional level since he was 17, 18 years old over in Finland. He's never had astronomical numbers in Finland, but he has been consistent. So I'm really interested to see what he does when he does get to Rockford and get the opportunity to play professionally in North America, where the ice is the ice is more condensed. The game is a little bit faster, a little bit more physical. What is his transition going to be like professionally? Same thing for Schornberg. Schornberg is not this guy that's going to put up big numbers, production wise. But he is in that mold of like fast, physical, hard worker, relentless kind of player. He himself has already played 3 seasons professionally as a teenager. He just turned 20 this year as a teenager in Sweden. He was part of the Team Sweden bronze medal team two years ago at the World Juniors. He captained Sweden this past year at the World Juniors. They finished with a loss in the bronze medal game to, I believe it was the United States. And he is a 2-time SHL champion with Warsaw. So this guy at 20 years old is already very decorated for a Swedish prospect. So I'm excited. He's one of out of this group. He's the guy I'm most excited to see what he becomes. And I think it's just a matter of if not when he eventually gets to the Blackhawks organization and gets to North America. I think he's one of these guys that I'm thinking the organization is going to make a priority to develop in their European system and bring over to North America. Tage Harding, when we talk about size, he is one of the biggest guys that the Blackhawks have in their prospect system. 6'7" defenseman, pushing 230, maybe into the 240 range. He's a big kid, and he's another one of these long-term defensive prospects. He was a 3rd-round pick out of the the AJHL rather, the Albertan Junior League, which is in one of that tier below like the WHL. And he's playing college at Providence. I think he's going to play all 4 years, and eventually we'll have to figure out what the Blackhawks want to do with him. But I think he's one of those guys where the size and the physical tools are there. It's just how much of his on ice skill set is gonna take him to the next level. Ryder Rolston, we got to know him a little bit this year, paying attention to him at Notre Dame. He was their leading point producer up until a collarbone injury ended his season. He's one of these guys that I think is going to come in, and is he more than a career AHL player? I think that's the biggest question on him coming into it. He's got the lineage with his dad being Brian Rolston, having a long successful career in the NHL. Ryder was a good producer for Notre Dame for the past 2 seasons. Like I said, this last season, his year got cut short with injury, so he'll be with the Ice Hogs. He was at development camp. He looked like the guy, from everything that we saw on social media from the Blackhawks regarding development camp. It always seemed like Rolston was there, kind of being a little bit more of a leader within the group. So I think that could be a role that he plays as he turns professional and is there with the Ice Hogs. I know Nick Lardis was somebody that a lot of people felt like was a surprise that he was available when the Blackhawks ended up taking him this last year. I'm excited to see what he does. I hope he becomes one of the steals of the 2023 draft. I think he's got a lot of great tools there. And then the last two here, Michael Tepley, he's one of these guys that for the last 3 years, I've been waiting for him to kind of turn that corner as a prospect. And, he's had some opportunities with the Ice Hogs. He's a big guy. He's got the offensive skills. He was another one of those players where, because of having played in Europe and then the COVID shortened seasons and everything, he was able to jump to the Ice Hogs a little bit earlier than expected. But that season before he jumped playing professionally with the Ice Hogs, he was a point per game producer in the WHL as a 18, 19-year-old. So the talent is there. I just think the consistency is the biggest question for him. I don't know if he's ever going to take that jump because he's had the opportunity to do it, hasn't done it yet. So this year is I think a big proving year to say, are you just a career AHL player, or can you take that next step to the NHL? And then the last one here, Marcel. This is probably the only guy that I would have left off, but because of a personal, I just want him to be an NHL player eventually. I put him in here. Big guy. He was supposed to go back to Gatineau and be teammates with Sam Savoie again in the Quebec Major Junior League. But just this past week, he was signed to an AHL deal, so he's going to be with the Ice Hogs this year. Might end up playing some games in the ECHL with the Indy Fuel, but as a teenager, being able to, get to the professional level at the size that he's at, I think it's a little bit going to be easier for him because I think the physicality he'll be able to adjust to. It's just the pace of everything. He's going to have to process everything faster. He's going to have to be able to make decisions quicker. I think he's got a good talent set. So we'll just see how he makes that transition to the pro game and what he can become.
Well, that is very thorough work. I can't really take issue with anything you did. There's no one that feels like egregiously overranked or underranked or anything like that. It is tough to take the Hawks colored glasses off sometimes with these things,
Yeah.
But I think you did a really good job of doing that and tackling this thing in a good way. It's awesome work, Mario, and I know everybody enjoyed it. The rest, we're not going to go over the rest.
I will say one thing that I saw online that someone said, what about Roman Kanserov? The fifth tier, the everybody else tier, some of it is, I think these guys are just guys. But some of it is also, I just don't know that much about them. And there's just so much still to learn about some of these guys. Kanserov is one of those. He has he had a very productive year in the Russian minor leagues. I think the upside is there. He's one of these more long-term project players. But if he hits his ceiling, yeah, of course he's going to jump up. If he hits those benchmarks, of course he's going to eventually jump up the rankings. And I think if you're taking a guy in the second round out of the Russian junior leagues, Russian minor leagues, something there, they see something there, something special that other teams maybe weren't necessarily seeing. He's a little bit on the smaller side, but I think what the Blackhawks believe his offensive capabilities are will push him up the pyramid as years go on, and hopefully he turns into someone that can come over, play in the Blackhawks system, and become a productive NHL player. That's the hope we have for all of these guys.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good stuff. Yeah, and I think it is fair to not say like, oh, I think Kanserov is going to be a second tier. We have no clue. No clue. So yeah, we'll see. We'll let it play out. And look, it's like you pointed out, like the fattest areas for the Hawks are the second and third tier. And that's what you were going to need to have this thing be successful for an extended period of time. So, Mario, great work.
Thank you.
Good job. I like those bobbleheads behind you, by the way. Did you get those from Foco?
No. These were not from Foco. These actually, this one might be. It is Patrick Kane, Conn Smythe bobblehead. So yeah, I'm gonna check the
like an animated with the Corey Crawford.
Oh. Yeah, actually, this is from Foco.
See?
Look at that. There you go. You can get this and many others like it.
There you go. And the Hayden Wisniewski Immaculate Inning bobblehead.
Yeah.
Yes. Or your Spurch, your sports merchandise, as we tagged it. You get your Spurch over at Foco, FOCO. It's baseball season. It's summertime. They got everything you need. Your Aloha shirts, your straw hats, your polos, bags, everything you need for a game or just hanging out with your buddies in your backyard. As we mentioned, you can get the bobbleheads, shoes, signs, anything you want to decorate your set or closet or office or place of residence in. Whatever you have to decorate, Foco will help you out in that regard as well. So check out foco.com, FOCO.com, or click the link in the podcast description and use the promo code CHGO and you're going to get 10% off all non-presale items.
That's a great deal. And if you're also looking for a great deal, you're wanting to play Cog Hill before?
Yes.
You ever want to do it with some of your favorite sports fans and CHGO folks?
Yes.
You can do it. Friday, August 25th is our inaugural CHGO Kickoff Classic at Cog Hill. 9 a.m. shotgun start. Brought to you by Pins and Aces and the Big Drive Energy podcast. CHGO, Big Drive Energy, and Pins and Aces are hosting the inaugural Kickoff Classic golf tournament at Cog Hill course number 2. You can sign up as an individual, twosome, or foursome at allchgo.com. Diehards, of course, you get a discount too. Email events@allcitynetwork.com to receive your diehard discount code. All this information, by the way, is on the event page. If you go to allchgo.com, the events tab, the first event there is our Kickoff Classic, and all this info is in there. But your entry fee includes 18 holes with a cart, an exclusive Pins and Aces tee gift for every player, access to our limited edition Pins and Aces and CHGO Polo, whole contest, great giveaways and prizes for contest holes, winning teams, and last place. Woo! Lunch, drinks, and a ceremony after the round. Hole and tournament sponsorships are available as well. Again, go to allchgo.com to get all the information on the inaugural CHGO Kickoff Classic. And we told you earlier that the White Sox crosstown takeover is sold out. The Cubs, what I'm told, is also very close to selling out. So if you've been waiting, don't wait. You don't want to miss this. Allchgo.com to get your tickets to all of our wonderful events.
Tickets are selling fast.
Like hotcakes.
Yes, hotcakes. Did we ever figure out who had the pancake problem from the other day? Was it Dustin Penner?
Oh, it was yes, it was Dustin Penner.
Dustin Penner. Okay.
Yes, it was.
I'm glad we figured that out. I have a question. Who gets to shoot the shotgun at the shotgun start?
Not me. I'm not interested.
Mm.
I think someone like
I don't know if I trust anybody on our staff with a shotgun.
I think Braggs is probably the most equipped to handle the heavy equipment.
Sure.
Yeah, I think he could do
Makes
it.
Sense.
Yeah. I know a couple of people I don't want to do it.
Mm.
We'll save that for an off-air conversation. I think Steven left it too, right?
Yeah. I think if you're just firing a shotgun up in the air, that could feel exhilarating.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, hey,
guns are scary.
Yeah.
Not my thing. Not my thing at all.
As long as it won't. Maybe it's like a starter pistol where it's not actually going to hurt anybody. It just makes a noise.
Yeah.
Could be like that.
There you go.
Or just maybe a whistle.
Good air horn.
Yeah, a nice air horn.
Everybody's safe with an air horn.
Yeah, I have air horns with me at all times. I'm always equipped with an air horn.
Yes.
That's all we need.
First shot of the day. First one in the ravine.
There you go. I'm going to stock up on balls. That's what I need to do. Get a couple dozen, and I should be good.
Clip that.
All right, we're going to wrap things up. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Yes, Monday is Mailbag Monday. Get those questions in at CHGO_Blackhawks on Twitter, at CHGO_Blackhawks on Threads. We're still there, damn it.
We're
still doing it. email us blackhawks@allchgo.com to get your questions in. And of course, our diehards only Discord channel, get your questions there as well. And the first 2 weeks of the offseason, we've needed 2 shows to get to all of them. So let's keep that trend going. We like your feedback. We like your questions. We get tired of hearing our own thoughts. So we want to get yours in there as well. So hit us up for Mailbag Monday. We'll talk
by Monday. We don't have it yet. By Monday, we will have a Philip Kurashev arbitration ruling.
I'm doing one more quick
ruling yet
before we log off.
Yeah. It's probably going to be at 5 o'clock on Friday.
Mark Lazarus movie reviews. Yeah, not interested there. Yep, nothing new.
No.
On the Kurashev front. All right. Well, we'll know by Monday. That's for damn sure. And if anything crazy happens, we'll be around this weekend. So you know where to find us. We'll talk to you Monday at 2 o'clock on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.